Good day. Good day. What's going on, y'all? We back at it again. JG, VE. and welcome. Welcome back once again to another episode of 101. And today, we're not gonna dilly-dally with it. We're gonna jump into it. And out the gate, what do you see as the value in, or maybe the overinvestment, right? The kind of two, sides of it, of portfolios and portfolio building, because you have quite the portfolio in your own domain. So
what do I see the value of that is?
However you want to start off. If we want to talk about the definition of portfolio, you know what I'm saying? Just run with it.
Yeah, I think we need to first define what a portfolio is. So simply put, a portfolio is literally a body of work. That can be in any medium, that can be in multiple mediums, that can be, you could have a portfolio of journals, right, that you never showed anybody. It doesn't have to be public, doesn't have to be private. Having a body of work is what I would define as a portfolio. I don't know if you agree with that, but.
Yeah, I think that certainly, because it's going to be different for every person, right? But having something that, I think about it almost like this is like the way that somebody might approach a year-end review, you know what I'm saying? Or they get to the end of their days and they're reflecting back on their life, those moments that they cherish is like the portfolio of their life. And so in terms of creative work, that portfolio is really, from where I'm sitting at, only serves to be a collection over time of what one has created, collaborated in, worked on, and to some degree, even projects that may not have gotten to their fullest level of completion, so to say, but just something that someone can look back on and be like, damn, I did that. Or I had a hand in that.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that, portfolio is not, it's not any one thing. There's portfolios in everything that we do. I guess you could technically argue that there's portfolios of what our diet looks like. What's your diet portfolio? I know that's a little more abstract
fuck with it.
Assignment than what we're talking about here, but I think that it's important to understand that a portfolio is literally just a body of work of anything, Mm-hmm. So I think that off the, from the jump with portfolios, I think people don't value them as much as they should. And portfolios, like we just said, they don't have to be public. There could be stuff that you're working on. There could be bodies of work that you want to move forward, collaborations that, maybe you're into interpretive dance, but your homies don't know that, You can have a body of work of interpretive dance that you keep on your hard drive and it doesn't ever have to go anywhere. But understanding that the compilation of that body of work in anything that you want to do or get paid for or want people to know you because, or you want to share blessings with others and collaborate with, you have to have a portfolio regardless. You can't just close your eyes. Hey, we're just going to do this today. Some people might take you seriously. Most people are going to say, what's your portfolio look like? When a model reaches out to me, they say, I want to see your portfolio, right? They usually don't because they found me on Instagram and that is part of my portfolio. So it doesn't really happen that way. But when you reach out to, let's say, we're going pretty into this, just as an example, we'll kind of back up a little bit. But when you go to wanting to shoot a small business commercial, that's going to run on social, paid ads, or on a pre-roll on a YouTube video, really targeted. Businesses want to know what other businesses you've worked with, what other jobs you've done. What is the other portfolio pieces? What do those look like? Because if you're out here shooting high fashion, photography, videography, and you're in New York bouncing around, somebody that has a carpet cleaning business or a lawn care business might not give a damn about that. Oh, that's some cool stuff. But how does that apply?
Mm-hmm.
That's not even representative of the type of stuff that they're trying to do. So being aware that, that portfolio is important in both regards, but really just understanding more than anything that, you need a damn portfolio. You want to do anything, you need a portfolio. There's so much media out there. You need to assign your name to your portfolio that's publicly out there with what you're trying to do. We are talking creative here, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about socks, right? We're not talking about my interpretive dance that I'm never going to show anybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nah, I think you really covered so much right there because I find it often, and I've been in this position too, where that question comes up as a creative individual of, but what am I going to do to sustain myself? And especially if somebody has a family, kids, because it's one thing to be kind of a hobbyist, to dabble in something, right? And it's a whole nother thing to be able to take that and then position yourself to be able to feed yourself and others. And the portfolio is so massive in that because similarly to in sales where you kind of you have to ask your way to your ideal client, you got to get those referrals, you got to find all that out. How would someone expect to wind up in a role or a job or position that they're seeking if they haven't then kind of shown the social proof and the real proof of concept is kind of where I also see a portfolio serving that role of, the niceties are cool. You might have the connections, the network. You might be in the right city. You might have all of that. But what do you do when you then cross paths with the person that really could use your services that you want to work with if you don't have work to show them immediately? So thinking back to how back in the day, there'd be people who would run up on artists or they would wait outside of a record label just to hand somebody a CD or throw them a cassette tape or throw them a USB. And that's like a miniature focused portfolio. As you said, sometimes work just comes into you because you have a publicly facing portfolio that is constantly being updated and amended. You know what I'm saying? And we have the tools to do that now. So for an individual to kind of be on the fence or iffy about it, every time you do one thing, because I think the other thing that might step in is some people may feel you have to be at a certain level to have a portfolio. Like you have to have a portfolio, where you have these big Fortune 500, companies on there as people you've worked with when it doesn't matter. If you shot your dog, you can add that to your portfolio early on. And when you get more work, that portfolio is a living document. I look at it very similarly to a resume. You have a master resume and that has that's the resume that's too damn long, right? That you can't submit to most places. And then from that master, so you always have a record of all of it so you don't forget, how you wrote it up, all of that. You then create a specified, focused resume for that particular job. If this is a sales position, if this is a digital marketing position, if this is a engineering position, whatever. And with creative portfolios, I think people should keep in mind that you can segment it the same way. The work that is primarily on your Instagram is not all that you've had. And something that you mentioned before we started recording was kind of how, if you wouldn't mind speaking on that transition from when you started with the grad photos and, now someone goes to your photo, grab her, you can't shoot my daughter, no.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. So for those of you that don't know, how did I start doing photography? Most of you know me probably from photography and on my Instagram. And like you just said, my portfolio right now does not reflect grad photos. My public, I guess the summation of me on the public side does not look like that on Instagram at all. However, that doesn't mean that I don't have the 287 grads that I've shot in my life on hard drives.
Jesus.
Doesn't mean I don't have those. I do. I have hard drives and hard drives and hard drives of grad photos. There's a lot of them, but the transition. So I started doing, I was in the bar scene when I bought a camera.
Mm-hmm.
I had left UGA and came back to UGA after a business venture in Buford, Georgia, with a longtime homie. We ended up parting ways, and when I came back, I was like, "Yeah, I need to make some money. Let me try this whole photography thing." Started shooting. Was connected in the bar scene, so started shooting tons of that sorority recruitment videos and grad photos. But there's a point where I was like, I am doing the same thing. I am showing up 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., doing the same thing that I'm doing at 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and 6 p.m. I can't do this anymore. So my portfolio reflected, and I had a whole grad photo page on my Instagram, or not on my Instagram, excuse me, on my website at the time, that only had grads, and it had my best shots. It didn't have every shot. It had the best shots of the most prominent people, had diversity, had men and women. My portfolio was less men, so I had literally more pictures of men on there on purpose, and then took just the best pictures of the women that I had to try to balance it out, because I didn't shoot as many grads that were dudes as I did women. So it was there, but then one day, one of these grads wanted to shoot for their modeling portfolio, right? And they were signed in Atlanta.
Fateful day.
Yeah, so that is when it began. And so I was, I was still posting the grad photo stuff on the same page, and then I started to post more modeling stuff. And it wasn't, when I say modeling stuff, I'm not talking racy photos. I'm not talking about, bent over, grab your ankles photos. What I am talking about, is just that space of more scantily clad. Okay. And for those of you that don't know what scantily clad is, look up the word, because it does not mean racy. It's not synonymous with racy, I promise. So when I was going to start shooting, I enjoyed that. It was a model that was far more technically sound than me on the modeling side and on the photographing model side, because I'd never done that. I'm posing people that literally never get in front of the camera. So it's pretty easy. It's a little bit different when you get somebody that knows what they're doing. And then you're like, wait a second, no, move your shoulder like this. She's like, no, I'm moving my shoulder like this. Yeah. You're like, oh, wait a second. What do you mean you're moving your shoulder like that? Well, James, I know what I'm doing. Okay. So I only say all that to say that I started shooting that stuff, but then my portfolio reflected grad photos. And then I got mad one day because I kept getting hit up for grad photos. And I was like, why am I getting hit up for grad photos? I don't like grad photos.
Yeah.
Well, it's because my portfolio reflected grad photos. It didn't reflect modeling portfolio. It didn't reflect the relationships I was building with the modeling agencies in Atlanta, or the relationships interpersonally with individuals that were signed in Atlanta or other markets in Athens at the time that were going to school that I was developing relationships with. So my portfolio to the outside world looked like I was a grad shoot, portrait session, like I'll do your corporate headshots, which is all cool if that's what you're about. That's not primarily what I want to do, nor am I probably ever going to do primarily, but it was where I started. So understanding, and it's actually interesting. I had a sit down with a great photographer in Athens by the name of Cassie Wright, and her and her husband took time out of their day to talk to me about kind of my portfolio, where I wanted to go, where I had been, and really brought it to my attention, in 2016, like, hey, James, heads up. If you want to shoot these kind of things, your portfolio needs to reflect these kind of things. And right now, your portfolio looks like you're a Athens, Georgia, UGA photographer shooting people that are graduating and maybe some second shooting of weddings. It does not reflect high fashion. It does not reflect the lifestyle photos. It does not reflect anything that you're telling me that you want to shoot. And I might have misspoken. I don't think it was 2016. I think it might have been 2017. Regardless,
that
it was
conversation.
That conversation happened, and they both kind of pointed something out to me that I wasn't really paying attention to, and that's that if your portfolio doesn't reflect what you want to shoot, you need to change what that portfolio publicly looks like. That's why you need that master, and you need all of your work and backed up multiple versions of your work, and everything sitting on your master doc or your master file set on the back end so that you can change that, Yeah. But you still have the portfolio. And just because you take something publicly off, I don't mean you got rid of it.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point, and thank you for sharing that, because I think it's a powerful demonstration of someone they don't need to lean on the excuse of, oh, well, I'm so far deep into this thing. This is what I do, right? That kind of same concept of never really settle on who it is you are, quote unquote, because then you might limit how you can grow and change. But what was required is to know where you do want to head. And I think it's worth acknowledging that not everybody may have that in mind. And so that's even more reason to kind of just have a portfolio that maybe isn't as cohesive, because then it allows people to see, the point that you made, you didn't shoot mainly men, you shot primarily women. So you balanced that out by having proportionally more of the men that you had shot on the website, so that you could know, like, hey, I don't want to handicap myself. A guy come across my page and think, oh, well, he doesn't shoot anybody like me, and the diversity. And these are ways that people can leverage to extend your portfolio, to open it up so that someone who does come across it, maybe what they gravitate towards isn't the thing that you've put more time into. And it can be an indication that there is interest there. And doubly so, I think that's an interesting point about having a portfolio that's not contained to one media type, right? So as you're doing currently, you're building out a portfolio audio-wise. I'm now building more so a portfolio visually. Like people, it is often in their best interest, especially if they're open to doing various things, to have various sorts of work available in some fashion. So back when you had started out, you had a website, and I'm not saying people shouldn't still have websites now. However, it is a consideration of how easily accessible is this. For the same reason, you can kind of hack the system to make some of your work a little harder to access so that it's not the, the first thing that people find. And you can do that through a myriad of methods. You can have the stuff that you want most dominant on Instagram, maybe associated with your legal name or your most common, your most popular handle, and the stuff that you're maybe hiding, kind of keeping in the back of the basket, And if you have a plan that you're working on that steadily, you're building it up, you can kind of launch it in a different way. So the same way that businesses have launches and companies and brands, individuals must look at their art in the same way of if there is some strategy, some intention. So perfect example, seeing more of what you do and having spent more time, doing the visual stuff I've known for a while. I've had an interest in it, but knowing specifically, all right, that's something I'm gonna put more time into. Knowing that now I can now build a portfolio and then have that in mind so that when I launch it, I'm not jumping out the gate, floundering in the water, and I can have some intentionality behind what's the end goal. The goal is no longer to just do free shoots for folks, the way that you started out in a lot of ways, which has its pros and cons. I'm sure we'll have another episode about kind of that, exchanging
TFP
free work
work
versus,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And so one can then jump into the game already knowing that, okay, I want to make a business out of this. I don't want this to be a hobby. I don't want it to be something that I spend my time doing, but I want to strike that balance of that love for it, but also that monetization of it in a structured, kind of predictable manner in the sense of knowing what one is getting into. But by knowing what you have, I keep that in mind as a creative person, that not everybody knows what you're sitting on. Not everybody knows about your potential versatility. You know what I'm saying? Someone who starts out photo based and then move into video, and someone start video, move to photo. Somebody, start out making trap beats, move into making cues. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of ways that somebody can go about it. And oftentimes I would encourage any artist to really push the boundaries of what you see yourself as an artist. So if you're primarily a dancer, like an easy step for that might be moving into choreography. So if you've choreographed anything, put that in your portfolio. Maybe it's one piece of your portfolio, but it rounds you out differently. Sometimes when people are looking for dancers, they're not looking for a choreographer, and vice versa, but they open up what your potential opportunities can be down the road if someone sees like, oh, well, they do this too and that, and I had no idea, because on their Instagram or their Facebook, it's all this or it's all that, you know what I mean? And just to round that out can really be the thing where one person reaches out. Just like if you hadn't already had the graph photos, could that one person have reached out asking about doing something for their modeling stuff, and you got a taste of that? You know what I'm saying? And, in my scenario, where most people have heard mainly trap type songs from me, most people have never heard the other end of the spectrum of the portfolio. And, you know what I'm saying, there's advantages and there's some disadvantages that come with doing either one, But as a whole, I think it's very important that people keep in mind that, like, everything can go in your portfolio, and then you parse it down for exactly where you want to deliver it to satisfy the needs of the client. The person who's looking for grad photos, you can break those 200 odd people back out and present it to them, But if you're trying to do work for clubs or brands or, lifestyle photography, whatever, then you obviously have that to break out. So, yeah.
The portfolio diversity can be something that's on the back end. Right. I think something I want to mention and add on to what you said is that, like, that, what you're talking about, breaking, putting those together and breaking them back off, that's back on the back end for you in what you want to do. I would not say it's advantageous for you to have a page that's straight up about portrait photography, you start dropping all kinds of other stuff on it, on that specific page. I wouldn't say that's advantageous. However, don't block a blessing. You can do that if you'd like, but also if you want to, you can still do the other work that you want to do. And if you would like to highlight it in a different manner or on a different page or with a different audience, you can do that too. I would say that the important thing here is in portfolio building is to not block yourself from doing that work, whether it gets publicly promoted or not.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification, because I did specifically mean for people who do not know where they want to go. It's fine to keep it more diverse, but obviously as you get more intentional, you need to whittle it down and niche down so that when someone falls on it, they're not just hit with two, examples of what they're looking for, but they can be flooded with it all. And then as you pick up the other thing that you might want to run with, make something dedicated for it, if you want to. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction to make, but I think people love to couple that with, they said we couldn't put it together, or this person said we can't put it together, so I just shouldn't do it. Yeah. And I think that's bullshit. And I think that's a very good excuse for inaction. The portfolio is what's important. But I think with that, as we're talking about what you're going to show and what you're not going to show, I think that if you want to shoot something, from a photo sense, or you want to score a film, or you want to choreograph for a dance house, or you want to be the choreographer for a play, you've got to show those things.
Yeah, you can't
regardless. And if you want to paint commissions in a certain type of style, you need to show that you have the versatility to do that, or people have no idea.
No, for sure.
I mean, it's not, there's a whole lot of art that is left in the dark that the world never gets to see. And it's pretty interesting because that's still part of your portfolio. But just like we said, if the world doesn't know about it.
Is it?
Yeah. Is it really? So I think that's something that you can probably speak to. You've got a bigger log of work on the back end that I don't think people even know exists than I do. Like a lot of things I've released. There is stuff that I haven't released that very select few people know that I have that doesn't really fit in line with the Instagram at the moment. But I would say that from everyone that I know that does creative, you have the biggest backlog of things that you're holding on to.
Damn, I definitely don't know if I fully agree. But yeah, it's kind of that idea of, as you said, if it doesn't see the light of day, if a tree falls in the middle of the forest and no one's around, that sort of vibe, because truly, if and that also distinction of who is the art being made for, are you trying to go pro or are you trying to stay a hobbyist? And if you're a hobbyist, cool. You don't ever have to, no one has to ever see that art. But if you do want to go pro, you do have to have a certain sort of footprint on the search engines, on Earth. You know what I'm saying? You have to be discoverable. And that's definitely something that I've struggled with, partly due to the perfectionist mindset of, it's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. When the reality is, sometimes you only need something to be 40% of the way there for that next opportunity to come. 50% of the way, 60% of the way, even in the sense of mentorship, you know what I'm saying? Like, perfect example. Some of y'all may be familiar with the band Manchester Orchestra. They're a rock band, kind of indie rock band, but an opportunity came up based on work that I had never even had put out. You know what I'm saying? And what had gone on was effectively, I found myself in the studio working on this song that had been made a year prior to that date, and it hadn't been released, right? Only certain people had heard it. But even that, because I shared it with one person, that one person showed, my homeboy Alec, he showed a certain level of interest and really reminded me of like, yo, this is strong. Like, you could do something with this, So we took it in the studio. He called some of his musician homies in, and one of them happened to be the drummer from Manchester. And off of hearing this song that was incomplete, had not been released, was over a year old, pulled me to the side and was like, hey man, I really dig what you're doing. Let's talk, let's chop it up. And that led to an opportunity to kind of get mentored by him. But that never would have happened if I didn't show that. So imagine, and if that happened from showing my work to one person, if that work was available for 10 people to see, for 20, for anybody with an internet connection to see. You just begin to add in, multiples of growth that can be possible just because now someone can touch point with it. You know what I'm saying? And I think it shouldn't be slept on that as an artist, you never know if the thing that you're doing is precisely the thing that someone is searching for but has yet to find. And as soon as they come across what it is that you do, it could be truly that moment of, oh, goodness, like this is what they had been waiting on and how it can accelerate the career. And so, you know what I'm saying, obviously watching your journey and your walk, some other, folks that I know, it's been that reminder, and I think I've gotten better at it, you know what I'm saying? But it is that truth, that reality that if your work is not publicly available, if it cannot be found, you can't be found. And so no one can call you with an offer. No one can call you with a request to collaborate. None of those things can really happen with the same probability if it's not available.
It's much harder to find. If it's much harder to find, it's probably a higher probability that's not going to happen. Because people are lazy. We're lazy in a lot of ways too. For as non-lazy in some areas as I'm definitely lazy in others. And I'm not, if I can't find you in a few Google searches on some collaborative stuff, I'm probably not going to happen. Yeah. I'm not going to keep searching. I'm not going to keep taking time to do it. So if I won't do that, it's probably not going to happen.
No, for sure.
It's probably not going to happen. So, the portfolio, I mean, it's something that we like to overlook because we also like to chase a dollar, right? Oh man, we gotta put food on the table. We gotta keep the roof over our head. We gotta pay rent. We gotta do this, do that. Well, what you have to sacrifice is not the bread to have a portfolio. What you have to sacrifice is watching Netflix for 9 hours a day.
Facts.
Chasing ass around.
Facts.
In your 20s and 30s. Maybe even sooner and later than that for some people, right? Yeah. You have to sacrifice some other things that at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, ain't gonna matter. Really not gonna matter, right? So, if art or any form of art or any this applies to the portfolio of work it applies far outside of creative, in my opinion. I mean, even our close buddy that runs a home improvement, servicing company, he's not a creative agency by any means, but he still has a portfolio of work with those clients, in deliverables that are different than what ours are. Ours are on the creative front, but it's still a portfolio. So yeah, I mean, I don't have too much else to say on that other than I really think that it's been kind of an awakening for me knowing that my portfolio is more diverse than I let on to people. And now it's getting more diverse because I'm dabbling in other places. And watch me when I come back and start picking up a spray paint can again.
Hey, waiting on it, boy.
Start mixing that back into to things. And I won't go into that on this podcast, not today. There's a big reason why I say spray paint. My younger years were a time, but I'm thinking it's finally time to come back around and look at what it looks like to go mixed medium, some spray paint with photography blown up with maybe some video installation, maybe
maybe a whole lot of.
Maybe throw I just squeaked. I got too excited. Maybe
that was that childlike creativity.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just things are flowing. Might just have to throw some music in there too.
And I think, because I agree, I feel we've definitely covered the portfolio topic pretty thoroughly today. But the point that you kind of built it up to is in my mind what the height of a portfolio really is. It's being able to step back and be like, damn, I'm into so many different things, or I have done so much work that I can then truly have an installation in a gallery. You know what I'm saying? Because we've talked a lot about this off record.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? About the future, but the times that we're living in, man, there's something to be said about there being a tactile, analog, living, breathing, in real life component to art. And obviously there's certain mediums in art, and I use one of them heavily that is pretty based in digital technologies. But that's part of why the experience can be that much more intense. You know, when you show up to the High Museum, you know what I'm saying, or the MoMA, and you're seeing work by people there. You just take it in a much different facet. But guess what? These artists like Virgil, you know what I'm saying, and you went to that, you know what I'm
Great
saying?
exhibit.
How do you expect them to get into these exhibits and get their, or to these museums and get their own installations and exhibits without a body of work that is so strong that someone sees
Can't
it
be
and they're
refuted.
just like, you know what, carte blanche, do your thing. And that's where I want to get to ultimately. And I feel that you're looking for the same goal. So, you know, everybody out there that's listening, just stay encouraged and know that even though you might be focused in a lane right now, life is long. You know what I mean? And you can do plenty of things, and maybe you can't do them all at once, but once you build up your skill set and you've knocked out 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 perfect, I'm put that air quote around there, pieces of work in a certain lane, and then you pivot to another, guess what? You're not gonna lose that skill from the thing you pivoted from. You've kind of locked it in, dialed it in, said, I bet I'm gonna go ahead and I was killing it in the NFL, I'm gonna go to MLB for a few years. I crushed it there, shit, I'm gonna go to PGA. I smashed it there. I think I might want to box now. You know, just whatever it is. And those people are rare, sure, but they exist. And that person could be you listening. Who's to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One last thing on that is that a portfolio, you know, the more work that you have in a portfolio, the more capability you have to pivot where you want to pivot. Because if you do not try and you do not put the effort in and the time in to go down a path to build a portfolio, even if you abandon that in a week, if you don't try, then you might not stumble upon the thing that the world needs from you. So, you know, I know that even me, I laugh at my own music. It's kind of funny that I just started making music. But if I stop tomorrow, I still put in a good 30 days. If I stop tomorrow, I learned a new skill that now can be applied to other things. And guess what? I don't need no damn audio guy if I do an installation. I can do it myself. So at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt you. You know, build that portfolio up, figure out where you want to be with it and where you want to go. And honestly, the more you play, the more you figure out what you do and what you don't want to do. And that's far more important than figuring out what you do want to do.
Hey man, I'm good, man. I think we just gave him the sauce.
Short, sweet, and to the point.
Hey man. So hopefully everybody out there, you got some value out of this. Hopefully if you have found yourself as one of those people as I have been in the past who is sitting on art that could be life-changing to somebody, consider revealing it to the world. Bring it forth. Something to keep in mind is that a woman can only be pregnant once at a time. And as a creative, consider that perhaps for your next great idea to come along, you have to let that prior creation, that prior child of yours out into the world. You must deliver it forth before you can get pregnant again. This has been Sae'Von Springer and
James Gillespie.
we out.